my talus, got my guitar, got my minion. Everything's good. Melissa, are we ready? We have folks on Zoom or YouTube Live. Okay. Welcome everybody who's here in body. Welcome everybody who's here virtually. We welcome you all. We're a hybrid community. Shabbat Shalom. Alan, how are you? We start on page 13. Shabbat Shalom. Let's rise for a moment as we say our blessings over the candles so that we can allow the light to enter the space, enter our hearts. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu Lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom. Welcome, welcome. You may be seated. Page 15, a series of psalms as we welcome the Shabbat. Sing to Adonai, we rejoice. Im Shana Akut Bedor Omar Am Toy Levavim Behem Lo Yadu Derachai Asher Nishpati Be'apim Yivun El Menuchati. 16. bottom. Yismachu hashamayim, yismachu hashamayim, yismachu hashamayim, yismachu v'tagel haaretz, yismachu hashamayim, yismachu
אשר בועז ירננו כל עצי יעל לפני אדוני קיווה לתפור הארץ ישפוט דבר בצדק ועמים באמונתו.
17, Psalm 97, we approach Hadodi.
Or Zarul Atzadik, Kol Yishmaele, Simecho Tzadikim B'Adonai, V'hodu Lezecher Kodsho.
Page 18. Zamrulai Bechinor, B'Kol Zimra.
לפני אדוני קיווה לשפוט הארץ, ישפוט דבר בצדק ועמים במישרים.
Page 19. Moshe Aaron bekohanav, Ushmuel bekorei Shemo, korim el Adonai, vehu yanem be'amud anan, v'daber alehem, shamru edotav, v'chok natan lamo, Adonai Eloheinu, ata anitam, el nosei hayita lahem, v'nokem ala lilotam, romemu Adonai Eloheinu, v'ishtachavu lehar kodsho, ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. We rise, page 29. Mizmor leDavid, Avul Adonai b'Teilim, Avul Adonai b'Kavod, Avul Adonai kevod shemo, yishtachavu l'Adonai ha'kodesh, Kol Adonai al hamayim el hakavod hirim. shai beit hamachmi karba el nafshi ge'ala lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nikabela lecha dodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nikabela hitoriri kiva We rise, bottom of page 22. Boliv et shalom, ateret ba'ala, gam besimcha, u'etzach olah, tochem unei, am segula, bo'ichala, lecha dodi, likrat kala penei Shabbat nikabela lecha dodi, likrat kala penei Shabbat nikabela. You may be seated. Page 23, Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbat. Tov lehodot l'Adonai. Tov lehodot l'Adonai. U'lezamer l'Shema Elyon. Tov lehodot l'Adonai. U'lezamer l'Shema Elyon. Lehagid b'boker haslecha.
אתה ביתנו בשבט Ordinum beseva de shenim rananim yo leagit yashar Adonai tzur evil of
Page 24. Adonai is sovereign, crowned with splendor. Adonai reigns, robed in strength. You set the earth on a sure foundation. You created a world that stands firm. Your kingdom stands from earliest time. You are eternal. Rivers may rise and rage, the waters may pound and pulsate, the floods may swirl and storm, yet above the crash of the sea and its mighty breakers is Adonai our God supreme. Your decrees, Adonai, never fail. Holiness befits your house for eternity.
Edotecha nemenu meod leveitcha nava kodesh Adonai liorech yamim.
It's Mourner's Kaddish in the middle of page 24. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei rabbah.
Amen.
Be'alma divra kirute v'yamlich malchute. V'chayechon uvyomechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala ubizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mevorach le'olam alomei omaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nechemata d'amiran be'alma v'imru amen.
Amen.
Yehe shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Ose shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. We all rise. Page 28. Our call to prayer for our Mariv service. Baruch Hu.
Baruch hu et Adonai Amivorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamavorach le'olam ba'ed.
Baruch Adonai Amivorach li'olam va'ed.
Be seated. Baruch Adonai, page 28. Thank you, God, for creating earth and sky, light and darkness.
ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני, אמרי ורבים.
Amen. Page 29, a prayer of love.
תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ואהבת
את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך בכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, ושרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. Continue on page 31. Amen. Page 32. Micha Mochar, Song by the Sea. Song of celebration, a song of redemption. Micha Mochar ba'elim Adonai. Micha Mochar nedar b'kodesh. Micha Mochar ba'elim Adonai. Micha Mochar nedar b'kodesh. Adonai imloch leolam ba'en. Page 33 of prayer and protection. Help us, Adonai, to lie down in peace and awaken us again, our sovereign to life. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu Leshalom, Hamidenu Malkeinu Lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu Leshalom, Hamidenu Malkeinu Lechaim. More Tzeiteinu. Ushmor Tzeiteinu. L'chaim Shalom. L'chaim Shalom. Me'ata b'Adonai. Hashkibenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, v'hamidenu malkeinu lechaim. Hashkibenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, v'hamidenu malkeinu lechaim. Shalom. Amen. We rise, page 34. L'shameru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat. La'asot et HaShabbat v'norotam b'ritomah. Amen. Hayehonu vyomechon ufchaye dechol bet Yisrael ba'agala ubizman karif. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevorach ve'olam ve'ol me'omaya yitbarach. Richu. Bechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'amameru. Amen. Yamida begins, page 35b, as we stand in the presence of God. If you're davening, please continue. Page 38, Shalom Rav. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Hasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Hasim Leolam. Ki ata Tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. Shabbat shalom. I traded one of my guitars in for a new guitar. It doesn't exactly know the chords yet, so it's it's figuring it out. Shabbat shalom. We're going to use our Chumashim today, so please take out your large red books for a moment. It's our Parshat Tetzaveh, and in it we find lots of different laws and instructions about the Kohen Gadol, the high priest. And one of the interesting things about our Chumash is that it's got the text up at the top, and then it's got page 509 is where we're going. It's got the text up at the top, and then it's got some explanatory notes in the middle, and then on the bottom, it tries to make things more relevant and emotional. And so we're going to look at two different areas in Parshat Tetzaveh, one that has to do with laws between people and people, in Adam l'chavero, and the other that has to do with laws between us and God, in Adam lemakom, right? Interesting term that they use, in Adam lemakom. Usually, we would say Adonai or Elohim, but makom means place, space, right? The place, the space. And I guess that refers to space, everything and all that we know and see. So it's bein Adam lemakom, between us and that space that we call God. So page 509, Aaron shall wear all the beautiful tunics and bells and pomegranate-shaped bells and ropes and all kinds of beautiful things, belts. He shall wear it while officiating, so that the sound of it is heard when he comes into the sanctuary before the Lord. And when he goes out, that he may not die. Oh my goodness. So these are strict laws apparently. And we know about Aaron's sons, Nadav and Avihu, right, who went into the temple and offered a strange fire, right? So this place had a lot of energy and power to it. And so you kind of had to do things the right way. We don't really have that kind of energy anymore, especially not in here. There's a more kind and gentle place, right? But the Holy Temple was fierce and powerful. And so that's the law. And we have a rule in rabbinics, right? Eitz Chaim Hi. The Torah is like a living tree, right? And all its ways are pleasantness. Kol nativotea shalom. So that's not very pleasant, right? So how do we, as rabbis, looking at the Torah and scholars and clergy, can shape it into something that's more peaceful and gentle? And so here we go. So in the middle of the page, right above the line, verse 35, sound of it is heard, right? So the specific role of the bells is to announce his approach to the deity, right? And so it's an announcement to God that, okay, here I come, right? And so, right, I guess we don't want to surprise God and enter the temple and the special places without announcement. And so that's the explanation of why the bells are there. I guess does that make sense? We don't want to surprise God. That's what it says, right? To announce his approach to the deity. Now, let's go down under the line, and that's where the rabbinics happen. That's where the drash, right, the commentary happens, which is to make things more pleasant and more poetic, that the sound of it is heard, verse 35. From this we learn that it's forbidden to enter anyone's room without first announcing your presence. Isn't that nice, right? So the rabbis sort of look at this and say, what do we do with it? And the answer seems to be, right, that we, ben Adam l'chavero, right? It makes it less about God and more about each other, right? We all know what it's like when someone bursts into our room. Yeah, we don't like that. And so that's why rabbis teach that it's forbidden to do that. Right? Isn't that interesting? Straight from the Torah, right? They have a rabbinic law that says we have to be kind and gentle with each other, respectful with each other, right? And so that's what the rabbis do to these strange, verses. right? So we are really rabbinic Jews, right? We're not Torah Jews, right? There was a book a while ago of someone who tried to live the year biblically, right? And so, right, it was a mess, right? Right? We live through the lens of the rabbis, right? And so there we go. That's Ben Adam lechavero. Treat each other kindly and respectfully. Always knock on the door, right? Don't surprise anybody, right? And so there you go. So now turn to page 516, and we'll look at one that's Ben Adam lemakom, between us and God. Verse 44, down at the bottom there, page 516. I know it's hard to hear the first time. Teachers always have to repeat, right? Yeah, the page numbers. Page 516. Vikidashti et ohel moed bet hamizbeach et Aharon bet banav akadesh lekahen li. Right? I will make this whole space holy, says God. I will sanctify the tent of meeting, the shahanti betoch bnei Israel. And there I will live among you. Right? I will dwell among bnei Israel. V'hayiti lahem lelohim. And that's how I shall be God, because I'll be present with you. And this is the way that it happens, right? Through this Ohel Moed, through this tabernacle, traveling tabernacle that was with us in the desert. Right? And so the rabbis look at this, okay, what do we do with this? 44, down in the middle, the tabernacle as such and its regimen of rituals possess no innate sanctity. They're poles, they're, what else do they have? Rugs and beautiful canvases. But these don't, the material doesn't really make it holy, right? It's just material. No effective magic derives from them. The sacred status of the priests and the edifice, with its furniture and utensils, flow entirely from the will of God. Right? The kidashti, I will sanctify. Right? So we can't expect God to come just because we build something nice. Right? It's God's will to fill that sanctuary with God's holiness. Okay, so that's interesting. Let's see what the rabbis do with it down at the bottom. People of Israel did not have the power to summon God's presence by performing these rituals. Right? We can't magically call down God's presence. It was an act of grace on God's part to choose to be present in their midst. Nonetheless, in post-biblical times, Jews developed the belief that by performing mitzvot and reciting the blessings Baruch Atah Adonai, we could feel God's presence in that moment. Whenever we say a blessing, right, over the wine, over the challah, over fruit, over the candles, right, we feel God's presence in that moment. And the Talmud asks a strange question related to this. If a priest's body is inside the tent, but his head is outside the tent, yeah, I'm not sure why that would happen, is he considered having entered the tent, and may he perform the service? So his head is outside, but his body, so he could do it, but just his head is outside. The answer is that he may not. He has to be totally within the tent in order to perform the service. So why do we bring this up? One is tempted to understand the question in spiritual rather than physical terms. So here we go. So now we have our Ben Adam Lemakom moment between us and God when we're here in the sanctuary. A person can be physically present at a service, right? Our body can be at the service, but emotionally and spiritually absent. Right? It doesn't have to do with ancient acrobatics of the Kohen. Right? What it has to do with learning this lesson from the Torah, right? And spinning it rabbinically and laying it out for us. A person can be physically present at a service, but emotionally and spiritually absent. Right? One's head may be elsewhere. Right? Bodies are here, but his head is elsewhere, just like the Kohen. Such a person is not considered a true participant. Right? So in order to be a participant in the service, you have to connect, right, in some way to the community, to the music, to the prayers, right, to the space. Right? There has to be an emotional and spiritual connection for us to really be present. And so that's my prayer for all of us, that we should be aware of mitzvot, ben adam l'chavero, treating each other respectfully and kindly, knocking on that door, hello, anybody in there? Right? And then also ben adam l'makom, between us and God, may we be fully present for God in the space and for each other in the space and without. Brooke, to you.
Page 47, please rise. ויכולו השמיים והארץ וכל צבאם. ויכולו השמיים והארץ וכל צבאם. ויכל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה. וישפוט ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה. יאללה 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 ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי ויקדש אותו. ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי ויקדש אותו. כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו. אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. יאללה 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 יאללה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו אלוהי אברהם אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב אלוהי שרה אלוהי רבקה אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה האל הגדול הגיבור והנורא אל עליון קונה שמיים וארץ מגן אבות בדברו מחיי מתים במאמרו האל הקדוש שאין כמוהו המניח לעמו ביום שבת קודשו כי במרצה להניח להם כי במרצה להניח להם לפניו נעבור ביראה ופחד ונודה לשמו בכל יום תמיד מן הברכות אל ההודעות אדון השלום מקדש השבת ומברך שביעי ומניח בקדושה לעם מדושני עונג זכר למעשה בראשית.
48.
אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו רצה במנוחתנו קדשנו במצוותיך ותקלקנו בתורתך צווינו מטובך ושמחנו בישועתך וטהר ליבנו לעבדך באמת והנחילנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה וברצון שבת קודשך וינוחו בישראל מקדש שמך ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
Amen.
יתקרא ויקרא שמי רבה.
אמן.
ביום דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון ומכון וחי לכל בית ישראל, בעגלה וזמן קריב ימרו.
אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ועולם.
מעמיה.
יתברך.
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי קודשה בריחו. ויהיה מנקו ברכתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה דמירן ביעלמה ויאמרו
אמן.
תתקבל צלות הון ובאות הון דכל ישראל קודם אבוהון ושמיה ויאמרו
אמן.
יש שלום הרבה מן שמי וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו
אמן.
עושה שלום במרומיו ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו
אמן.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם בורא פרי הגפן.
אמן.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ורצה בנו ושבת קודשו ביאהבה וברצון הנחילנו זיכרון למעשה בראשית כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש זכר יציאת מצרים כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים בשבת קודשך באהבה ורצון הנחלתנו ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
Amen.
לחיים.
L'chaim. Page 51 for Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית.
שלא
עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגור עלינו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ ומושב עיקרו בשמיים עמם ושכינתו זו בגובי מרומים הוא אלוהינו אין עוד אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו כך כתוב בתורתו וידעת היום בהשבות אל לבבך כי אדוני הוא האלוהים השמיים ממעל והארץ מתחת אין עוד אין עוד. ככתוב בתורתך ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד ושמו אחד. You may may be seated. On this Shabbat, we're commemorating the Yortzites of Ruth Broth, Neil Diamond, Herta Edelmuth, Daniel Gardner, Sam Goldman, Stanley Goldstein, Mike Goodman, Rosa Hayden, Faye Meyer Hunter, Joseph Josem, Jerry Kamen, Annie Katz, Helen Keller, Cheryl Silber Kuttner, Harold Lerman, Arlene Lowenstein, Sydney Magson, Marcia Sitver Peterson, Sarah Schneider, Deborah Ostroff Siegel, Isaac Stupel, Michael Stupel, Shoshana Friedel Train, Helen Warren, Joe Weingarten, and Eve Wilkes. All those in a period of mourning, those observing a Yortzeit, we ask you to rise. Words of Mourner's Kaddish can be found on page 52. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shmei Rabbah.
Amen.
V'yalma divra kirutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uvizman kari v'yimru amen.
Amen.
Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam l'omei omaya. Yitbarak v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shmei kudisha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran b'yalma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimru amen.
Amen.
You may be seated. A couple of announcements. Tomorrow morning, Shabbat morning service is at 9:30. We have a couple simchas we're going to be celebrating. Come down and celebrate with us. Morning minyan every day, Sunday through Friday at 9 p.m. on Zoom. 9 a.m. to the morning minyan. On Zoom, Sunday we'll continue with the class at Adult Ed, Red, White, and Jew, and we'll be looking at the relationship of American Jews to Israel over the last several decades. Wednesday, Rabbi continues with Exploring Judaism at noon on Zoom. Inspired Book Club. Let's see, that's after services at 1 o'clock tomorrow. There's a CBS No-Sew Blanket Workshop on Sunday, February 13th at 1:30. And watch for a family-friendly Havdalah program. We've got all sorts of exciting things that are happening. We've got this giant screen we ordered. It's going to be an outdoor movie Havdalah experience.
Like a
We're very
drive-in,
excited.
yeah.
All right. Hope everybody will see you there. Super Bowl on Sunday. Did I miss anything?
That's a lot. I don't know.
Okay. What's that?
Friends, we conclude with Yigdal, page 53.
Yigdal Elohim chai v'yishtabach
Nimtza v'yenet el metziuto echad v'yen yachid keyichudo ne'elam v'gam en sof le'achduto
ein lo demutad guf v'yeino guf lo na'aroch ela kedushato
Kadmon lechol davar asher nivra rishon v'en reshit l'reshito.
Hino adon olam v'chol notzar yoreg gdulato malchuto
Shefa nevuato nitano el anshe segulato v'tifarto.
Lo kam beYisrael k'Moshe od navi umabir et emunato
Torah temet natan liyamoel al yad nevio neman beito.
Lo yachalifa el v'lo yamir dato liolamim lezulato
Sofer v'yodea sitarenu mabit l'sof davar b'kadmato.
Gomer ish chesed k'mifalo noten l'rashara kerishato
Yishlach l'ketz yamin meshichenu לפדות מחקקת ישועתו.
מתי מיכאל ברוך חסדו, ברוך הדעת שם תהילתו.
מתים מיכאל ברוך חסדו, ברוך הדעת שם תהילתו. We rise for Christi benediction.
יברכך אדוני וישמרך.
כן יהי רצון.
יאר אדוני פניו אליך ויחונך.
כן יהי רצון.
יישא אדוני פניו אליך וישם לך שלום.
כן יהי רצון. שבת שלום. שבת שלום.
Yes, indeed.
Executive Director Extraordinaire.
Blending of languages, she's the G, DJ. It's gesund by de jour.